Good evening. You're watching ARIRANG News at 8. It's Friday, January 3rd here in Korea. Live from Seoul, I'm Yoo Li-an. We begin this evening at the nation's top office. President Park Geun-hye hosted a New Year's greeting ceremony this Friday, where she unveiled her policy direction for 2014. Meanwhile, the Korean leader is set to hold a news conference on Monday, her first since taking office more than 10 months ago. Yoo Li-an has our top story.
Alongside some 200 key government officials that represent ministries and state administrations, President Park Geun-hye held a New Year's greeting ceremony on Friday afternoon at the presidential office of Cheong Wa Dae. She used the opportunity to urge the government to quickly pull up the national income level to $40,000 and once again called for a peaceful reunification of the Korean peninsula. Among those in attendance was Democratic Party leader Kim Han-gil, making it the first time in 5 months that the opposition party has taken part in a bipartisan meeting. He proposed the creation of a special committee that consists of representatives from the rival parties and the presidential office to resolve conflicts that stem from the growing economic gap between the classes. Kim also emphasized that the president should seek national unity through active communication. Ruling Saenuri Party leader Hwang Woo-yeon, meanwhile, said 2014 would be a year in which his party would only look towards improving the lives of ordinary people. Now on Monday, President Park will hold her very first New Year's press conference at Cheong Wa Dae, where she's expected to lay out her plans for the new year. The conference will be attended by cabinet members and top Cheong Wa Dae secretaries. While the past year has been about handling state affairs, this year she is expected to ensure the new policies actually bring about fruitful results so that people can feel their effects. Following her speech, she will hold her very first public Q&A session with reporters, a move that's being interpreted as an effort to tame criticisms from the opposition party that she hasn't communicated effectively with the people. Yoo Li-an, ARIRANG News.
President Park's New Year's press conference will be brought to you here in ARIRANG TV at 10 a.m. Monday local time. And with the apparent extension of an olive branch to the south by North Korean leader Kim Jong-un in his New Year's address, hopes are high that the two Koreas will see a thaw in relations in 2014. But not so fast, says South Korean ministers and North Korea experts who say the move could be a strategic maneuver. Han Da-eun has this report.
North Korea's agency in charge of inter-Korean relations has pledged to open up a new phase towards the reunification of the two Koreas in 2014. In an interview posted on the North's propaganda website 우리민족끼리 on Thursday, officials from the Committee for the Peaceful Reunification of the Fatherland called for pragmatic efforts to improve inter-Korean ties. This comes a day after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un sent a conciliatory message to the South through his New Year's address. On the same day, President Park Geun-hye said she will make greater efforts in 2014 to realize peace on the Korean peninsula during a phone conversation with UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. Against this backdrop, hopes are rising the two Koreas could relaunch stalled talks soon. Some say Pyongyang will likely propose talks on family reunions for those separated since the Korean War sometime around Lunar New Year at the end of January. But many experts are warning against being too optimistic. They say Pyongyang's conciliatory message is likely part of a carefully calculated move to get leeway for further provocations if needed, as well as to calm any internal instability. Seoul's unification ministry is also refusing to read too much into the messages. In a statement released Friday, the ministry said it remained skeptical as Pyongyang forged ahead with a nuclear test and other provocations in 2013 after pledging to take a path of reconciliation in its New Year's address last year.
We can help but have doubts about the sincerity of North Korea's New Year's address.
The ministry reiterated it was North Korea that worsened inter-Korean ties. The statement also urged Pyongyang to first take sincere steps, including towards denuclearization, before discussing improvement of ties between the two Koreas. Ministry spokesman Kim Ui-do told reporters there has been mixed analysis on the recent cordial message from Pyongyang, but the ministry believes North Korea has not shown it has changed its previous stance. South Korean government officials say, however, that they have not completely ruled out the possibility of inter-Korean dialogue sometime in the near future. 한다은, 아리랑 뉴스.
While all eyes were on North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's New Year's address for signs of his policy focus, some took note of how the young leader delivered his 26-minute speech. Our Connie Kim explains.
Same hairstyle, same outfit, and the way the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un moves is no different from last year's New Year's address. However, his softened facial expressions and a change in the tone of his voice hint of a sign of boosted confidence. A sound expert has analyzed his tone of voice. The expert says his higher voice tone and his clear pronunciation is noteworthy, suggesting Kim has grown more confident over the past 12 months.
Listening to Kim's 2014 New Year's address, the voice factor shows tolerance has increased by up to 50% from last year. Also, noting that a person's voice becomes very clear when confident, Kim's confidence level has jumped by up to 60%.
From following a middle-aged man's low voice tone, Kim has found his own tone that better suits his young age. The similarity between Kim Jong-un and his grandfather Kim Il-sung's voice has decreased from 92% to 80% in the space of a year. Kim Jong-un's New Year's Day broadcast last year was the first for a North Korean leader in 19 years, a move intended to evoke nostalgia for the Kim Il-sung era. However, Kim's appearance on film for less than 3 minutes in this year's speech raised speculation that the young North Korean leader may be in bad health or that he may still be in shock following the execution of Chang Song-taek. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And Washington's main focus in terms of its North Korea's policy in the new year remains unchanged: Pyongyang's denuclearization. The U.S. State Department Deputy Spokesperson Mary Harf told reporters on Thursday that the U.S. will continue to make decisions based upon Pyongyang's actions, not its words, and added Washington did not see any sign of the regime's commitment to denuclearization in Kim Jong-un's New Year's speech. As for recent visits by Japanese politicians, including the Prime Minister, to the controversial Yasukuni War Shrine, Harf said Washington has been urging Japan to resolve historical issues with its neighbors in an amicable manner. For his first official overseas trip of the new year, Seoul's Foreign Minister ByungSe will be traveling to the United States. And dominating his bilateral talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry will be Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to a controversial war shrine and North Korea. Our Park Ji-won has the details.
Korean Foreign Minister ByungSe will visit the U.S. next week to hold talks with key figures of the Obama administration, including his U.S. counterpart John Kerry. According to the Foreign Ministry on Friday, Yoon will depart for the U.S. on Sunday and hold talks with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry on Tuesday. The two will hold a joint press conference following the talks.
It is a very significant event for the foreign minister to visit the U.S., one of the most important diplomatic partners, especially at the beginning of this new year.
The talks will center on issues surrounding the Korean peninsula and Northeast Asian affairs, particularly North Korea's moves following the execution of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's uncle, Chang Song-taek. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's recent visit to a controversial war shrine that honors Class A war criminals is also expected to be discussed. In the talks, Yoon is likely to deliver Korea's clear opposition to Abe's visit and lay out Korea's vision for resolving historical disputes in Northeast Asia. Other issues on the table will include defense cost-sharing negotiations and Washington's transfer of wartime military control to Seoul. The bilateral talks between Yoon and Kerry come about 3 months after their last meeting at the end of September during the UN General Assembly in New York. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
That very visit.
Touch base with journalists, experts, and analysts who are taking the pulse of Asia's heartbeat.
South Korea's defense minister.
In a lively half hour, join ARIRANG's Yoo Li-an for the day's top stories, current affairs, business, technology trends, plus global weather forecasts and more. ARIRANG News. Every weeknight, live on ARIRANG TV.
The Korean government plans to front-load 65% of its annual budget in the first half of the year to ensure the economic recovery stays firmly on track over the next few months. The decision was approved Friday during a cabinet meeting led by Prime Minister Jonguns. Under the plan, the government will set aside 40% of its fiscal spending for this year in the first quarter and 25% in the April to June period. Officials say funds will be funneled into projects that are easy to carry out and benefit regular people, like measures to boost jobs. After a stellar 2013, global stock markets dipped in the first trading day of the new year, largely brought down by the disappointing state of the Chinese economy. Shin Se-min has the details.
Stock markets around the globe started the new year on a weak note on poor economic indicators out of China, suggesting a slowdown in its economy. U.S. shares plunged on the first trading day of 2014, with the Dow Jones Industrial Average closing 0.8% lower and the S&P 500 falling nearly 0.9%. Jitters over the Chinese economy overshadowed the Eurozone's highest manufacturing sector outlook in 2.5 years. The falls were partly due to profit-taking after a record-breaking run at the end of 2013, but analysts said concerns over the world's second-largest economy set the tone. The U.S. market opened hours after Beijing released China's Purchasing Managers Index, which fell to a 4-month low in December. China's National Bureau of Statistics announced Friday that the PMI dropped to 54.6 in December from 56 in November. The number is still above the 50-point mark, which separates expansion from contraction in the manufacturing sector, but analysts said that the drop suggests the momentum of growth has peaked in China and that the economy would decelerate. Over in Europe, share prices also fell on the first trading day of 2014. In London, the FTSE fell 0.5% and Germany DAX fell 1.6%. And in Korea, the Kospi closed 2% lower on Thursday and dropped 1% more on Friday to close the week at 1,946 points, a 4-month low. Concerns over the exchange rate due to the weakening of the Japanese yen and the decline in Samsung Electronics' fourth-quarter earnings led the 2-day decline. However, analysts are optimistic that the market will bounce back following economic recoveries in the American and European markets. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
And Bank of Korea Governor Kim Jung-soo said Friday that the central bank will take appropriate measures to stabilize local financial markets if and when it's necessary. In a New Year's speech to financial institutions, Kim said the central bank will strengthen its monitoring for offshore capital flows. His remarks came a day after the Korean won gained the most against the U.S. dollar and the Japanese yen in more than 5 years, raising concerns that the price competitiveness of local exporters might erode. Korean Finance Minister Hyun Oh-seok also gave assurances that the government is closely keeping an eye on the nation's currency market. And taking it now to India, a teenage girl has died days after setting herself on fire following 2 gang rapes in the latest case to highlight the country's sexual violence. The tragic death has sparked protests in the city of Kolkata. Our Kwon So-ah has this report.
The new year in India began with national outrage over the death of a 16-year-old girl who was gang raped twice in October last year and reportedly lit herself on fire in December. The girl, who cannot be named for legal reasons, was gang raped on October 25th in Kolkata and again on the next day by the same group of men after filing a complaint with the police. On December 23rd, the teenager was hospitalized with around half of her body burned, and the media reported she had set herself on fire. While she was being treated, her doctors discovered she was pregnant. A few days later, however, she was said to have told police just before dying that 2 men set her on fire when she was home alone. Her family emphasizes that she did not commit suicide and that police tried to cremate the body as fast as possible in an apparent attempt to get rid of evidence. Indian activists are demonstrating against the government's handling of the situation.
I would like to stress that the government is responsible for the girl who would have been present amongst us today if the West Bengal administration had properly carried out the law. We do not seek anything else. But where is the law? A girl was gang raped twice and still you're unable to punish the accused. Why?
The victim's father says he will demand the death penalty for the two men accused of his daughter's murder. The issue of violence against women in India grabbed national and international attention just over a year ago after a 23-year-old woman was brutally raped on a bus in New Delhi in December of 2012. 4 of the 5 rapists in that case are now facing the death penalty. Since that incident, the government has introduced new laws against sexual violence, but the latest case has renewed criticism against the government for failing to protect women. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
And dozens were killed in a string of attacks in Iraq Thursday in yet another sign that extremist groups linked to al-Qaeda are making a resurgence in the country. The United Nations says that violence in Iraq in 2013 soared to levels not seen in years. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
A suicide bomber driving a car full of explosives killed at least 12 people and wounded 25 others in Iraq Thursday. The bomb went off outside a car showroom northeast of Baghdad. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Violence has intensified since April after the Shia-led government carried out a deadly crackdown on a Sunni protest camp. Tensions were further fueled during the past week following the arrest of a senior Sunni politician by authorities and after police dismantled a Sunni protest camp, killing at least 13. On Thursday, al-Qaeda militants took control of almost half of the cities of Ramadi and Fallujah in Anbar province, where heavy fighting has been raging since Monday. In a separate attack on the same day, a truck bombing claimed the lives of at least 19 people in a city north of Baghdad, as security forces and allied tribesmen clashed to put down an uprising by al-Qaeda-linked militants. In another attack that day, a minibus exploded, killing 4 and wounding 6 in Baghdad's Shab district. And earlier in the day, a roadside bomb exploded inside a street market, taking the lives of 4 people and injuring 11 others south of Baghdad. Earlier this week, the United Nations said over 7,800 Iraqi civilians were killed in violent attacks in 2013, the highest annual death toll in years. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Back here in the country, hospitals in Korea are reporting a surging number of flu patients, with health authorities issuing a nationwide influenza warning. The doctors say the best means of defense is still a flu shot, but even that might not stop you from falling victim to the virus. Paul Lee reports.
Here in Seoul, a local medical clinic has been experiencing a sharp spike in patients suffering from high fevers, chills, and other flu-like symptoms. Freezing temperatures over the past few weeks have exacerbated conditions for potential influenza infections, with young children and senior citizens at the highest risk of complications.
Due to my severe condition, I collapsed. I couldn't even get up in the middle of the night.
Korea is expected to boast the highest rate of flu vaccinations in recent years, with about 15 million people getting vaccinated this winter. Even though annual flu shots remain the most effective way to reduce your chances of infection, they don't guarantee protection from every viral strain. Doctors say it's also important to recognize flu symptoms from that of a common cold, as the virus can leave your body vulnerable to secondary infections such as pneumonia.
In the case of a persistent fever and worsening symptoms, you may in fact be suffering from influenza. Since there is a chance of catching secondary pneumonia, it's best to first go to a hospital and get diagnosed.
In addition to vaccines, strict personal hygiene is your next best bet in preventing the spread of the influenza virus. Wearing masks when going outside is recommended, as well as frequently and thoroughly washing your hands with soap. Paul Yi, ARIRANG News.
The weekend is just around the corner, and if you're hoping to enjoy the height of this winter season doing something other than skiing, why not try some cool festivals and events? Lee Tae-ho says they offer a chance to sample a delectable aspect of Korean culture.
Voted one of the most beautiful and scenic sites in all of Seoul, Namsangol Hanok Village in central Seoul welcomes visitors the year around with lively performances and events as well as a glimpse of Korean culture. Located on the northern base of Mount Namsan, this is the village of Hanok, the traditional houses of the Joseon dynasty. Here, the houses are furnished according to the class of the occupant to better educate visitors about the lifestyles of the people in this period of Korean history.
This is great because I can show my children the lifestyle of our ancestors and their attachments and affections as well, so the children are excited. And the children can see and learn that our grandparents lived in homes like these.
The village holds a variety of different festivals and events during the winter season, and they are based on the holidays of the lunar calendar. For instance, on the upcoming Lunar New Year's Day, the village will serve tteokguk, a traditional soup made with rice cakes and a savory beef broth, to an expected 3,000 visitors.
Here at Namsangol Hanok Village, we prepare foods for people to sample during the most important seasons in accordance with the 24 divisions of the lunar calendar.
That's not all. The village is currently hosting its annual Ice Flower Festival, and the beautiful ice sculptures lit up at night offer a perfect backdrop for a walk around the park with family or friends. Namsangol Hanok Village is open year-round until 8 in the evening. The Ice Flower Festival will run until the 20th of January or until the sculptures melt. And admission to this wonderful historic village and park is free to all visitors. Lee Tae-ho, ARIRANG News.
Time to get a check on the weather with our Kim Bo-kyung at the Weather Center. Now, Bo-kyung, we had high levels of fine dust this morning. How are things looking now?
Well, Tia, we're forecast to get more fine dust later tonight through tomorrow morning, so children and the elderly should take caution. Now, taking a look at our satellite map, the nation is at the edge of a high-pressure system, which is why it was a cloudy day in most parts of the country. Well, continued from yesterday, dry weather advisories are still in effect in some regions. It's a dry weather alert in Gangwon-do province and dry weather warning in the southeastern coastal regions. Other than that, the mountains in Gangwon could see heavy snowfall tomorrow evening, which will hopefully take away the fine dust. Looking ahead at tomorrow's readings, Seoul starts off the day at -3 degrees with a high of 5. Meanwhile, Daegu and Gwangju hit 8. As for other regions, Jeju makes it to 9 degrees. Meanwhile, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang peak at 3 and -4 degrees respectively. Well, I hope you have a wonderful Friday night, and let's take a look at the international weather.
That's our broadcast on this Friday evening. I'm Yoo Ji-hye in Seoul. Thanks for watching.